My text, A Modest Proposal: How to Solve Problems of the Future, is a satirical, persuasive text which aims to highlight the inadequate leadership we have in the world through persuading the audience with an outrageous proposition of fixing the problems by abolishing democracy and replacing it with a system where a small group of people elect a leader instead. It attempts to challenge the views of individuals who may vote for careless leaders or don't care for who their leader is. The text changes their views on how and who they vote for. This can help them realize that since they have the power to vote, they have a responsibility in choosing better leaders, as the consequences of others choosing a bad leader can be terrible. I have been influenced by the satirical texts of both Jonathan Swift's satirical persuasive A Modest Proposal and M.T. Anderson's satirical novel Feed. These have impacted on my piece extremely as they have affected the form, topics, and satirical techniques within. While reading Anderson's novel, I saw how Anderson was satirizing the political leaders can be pernicious by focusing on the wrong issues in the world. This is presented when the president in the novel dismisses the legions people are getting. Of course, they are not the result of anything American industry has done. This inspired my topic for my text, which can be seen when you compare the feed quote with a quote from my text when I start to emphasize that the chosen leader is not always the best person for the job. In fact, recently acquiring a political position does not entail the idea of good leadership at all. The comparison of these quotes demonstrates how both text topics are political and discuss the issue of pernicious leaders within governments. I highly enjoyed Jonathan Swift's use of a satirical persuasive form to present his Julian satire of the Ireland poverty as a result of English trade restrictions. With this form, he was able to make absurd satirical proposal to fix the poverty issues by eating children, as that a young, healthy child, well nursed, is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food. This helped gain attention to the text, which let more people realize the problems in Ireland. This can be compared to how in my text I suggest to stop the democratic system, as unequipped leaders are powerful. You might ask, who placed them in power? The answer is the people, showcasing how I was inspired by Swift's text to also do a satirical persuasive in a similar way that details a ridiculous idea to gain more attention for a certain political leadership issue I was raising. My choice of techniques in my text was inspired by techniques used in Feed and A Modest Proposal. This can be seen in a serious tone similar to Swiss text throughout the piece. We get leaders who manifest the capacity to destroy the world, invoke carnage, and global disasters. This tone is used to clearly reflect the issues I want to showcase to the audience, as it helps my text point be clearly outlined, especially when I allude to real-life examples of Donald Trump who have been managing the United States poorly. Furthering this, the serious tone is also used in conjunction with a satirical technique of a hyperbole, inspired by Anderson's novel, when I advocate that North Korea is a happier country. A report from North Korea government presents information that showcases that by having a leader and not opposing political parties will reduce all arguments by 90%. The tone makes the reveal of my hyperbolized argument more shocking to the audience, as the absurd arguments is in contrast with the serious tone, ultimately grabbing their attention to the issues outlined. I also decided to use the technique of a rhetorical question: who placed them in power? Making the audience start to think about how terrible leaders are chosen through the democratic system, and to resolve this problem, they have to have the responsibility to vote for capable leaders. By asking a question to the audience, it engages them into the piece of text. For this reason, I place this technique near the start of my text so the audience will be able to think about this issue while reading. Thus, by outlining the issues in politics clearly and engagingly, the audience are able to understand and start thinking about the issues of ineffective leaders well. The process of making a creative writing is highly important, as the writer needs to make the text very engaging for the audience. The first step was to come up with an idea to what to write about. To do this, I read a bunch of texts to help me inspire me. This resulted in me enjoyably reading feed and a modest proposal which inspired me to use techniques, forms, and ideas. This resulted in me coming up with the idea to do a satirical persuasive about global leaders. I then planned out my arguments that I was going to have in my text in a mind map. This is so I was able to organize and visually see how my arguments were going to relate to the topic. Playing this out was essential since I decided to use a serious tone throughout the text, so I needed logical arguments that seemed real. The next step was to take these arguments and make my first draft. I handed in the draft into my teacher to get feedback. Most of the feedback was to improve the way I wrote the text, as there was a lot of colloquial language used inside when I should be going for a more academic voice to align with the serious tone. This started the editing stage of my writing process, which I believe to be the hardest stage, as I didn't know the best way for my text to sound more academic. This editing stage is important as you are able to take the feedback you got and refine the text to make it better. Once I finished editing, I had my second draft ready, which I handed in to the teacher again for more feedback. I repeatedly kept editing and getting feedback from teachers, friends, and tutors, so my text could be the best it could be. After 5 drafts, I finally decided that I was done, because I don't think I could have edited better than it was already at. In conclusion, my satirical persuasive text was created for the purpose to challenge the views of the audience on how and who they vote for, so they may understand that they have a responsibility in choosing satisfying leaders, as by other people choosing terrible leaders can have a damaging impact on the world. I believed I had achieved creating my purpose by working through the creative process and implementing elements of text that inspired me. The process of creating a piece of writing was fun, even though while editing I did challenge me. I should improve upon my editing skills in the future, so editing becomes faster and easier. However, I think my finished text is very good and made a lot of improvements in my creative writing skills, as this text was better than any of my previous creative writings I have ever made.